This is the Marketing Agency Power Hour, and I'm your host, Cal Wilder. Each week, we'll power through discussions on business challenges, success stories, and game-changing strategies. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, provider of bookkeeping and accounting for marketing agencies. Let's get started. So I'm thrilled to be talking to today's guest. They're a passionate marketing leader, a lifelong entrepreneur, a podcast host herself, an AI enthusiast, and an advisor. She's got a lot of experience in cybersecurity, managed IT services, and innovative B2B technology. She's the podcast host of Shift and Thrive, and she is the founder and CEO of Magnetude Consulting. Natalie Nathanson, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It is great to be here.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you. So let's dive right in. In your firm, what's the single most powerful strategy that's driving success these days?
I would say there's two ways that I would answer that. I think first, and what's driven our success kind of all these years to date, has really been having a clear focus on our ideal clients and having a good industry focus. So you mentioned in my intro, we work across B2B tech. Within that, cybersecurity and IT services are our two largest segments. And so as I've grown my team, brought in kind of senior marketing experts that know not only the marketing functions and disciplines, but that have kind of grown up in those ecosystems, which allows us to be very kind of authentic to the target audiences that our clients sell into, and also staying very focused on the types of clients that we know we can best support. I would say more to the point these days is, we all know how much AI is taking the industry by storm. And I really early on kind of saw the writing on the wall. And so for the last 3 years, we've been undergoing an evolution of our firm and really making sure my team is upskilled and that we're making the right investments, both in kind of the team's knowledge, other kind of components of change management that need to take place related to kind of integrating AI appropriately into our work, and really making sure that our clients are experiencing the benefits of that.
I hear a lot about AI in the marketing space, and I'm curious how how do you go about tackling that, right? It can do so much for you, but how do you really focus and prioritize and how to utilize AI in your firm?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is making sure you understand how and when to use it, and also when not to use it or when not to lean on it. So for us, again, it was first understanding the capabilities, recognizing that that is a moving target, making sure that the team, like everyone on my team, is kind of coming along for the ride. And then really looking at having the right foundations in place. So there's a number of things that we put in place, making sure we have all of our standard operating procedures well documented so that we can look at kind of where we do and don't want, AI and, automation stays closely intertwined with AI there. And then always putting, quality first, right? And that human intervention, quality content. I always say it's never been easier to create mediocre content and creative. And it's unfortunately creating a lot of noise in the market. So I think the onus is really how to do it right, and making sure it resonates with your clients, your target, the target market you're selling into, and also doing it securely and making sure that you have the right safeguards in place.
You mentioned there's times to utilize AI and there's times not to utilize AI, and you mentioned wanting to do it the right way. Kind of, how do you go making that decision? And what are the great use cases for AI, and then what are the use cases that you try to avoid with AI?
Yeah, I would say it's, being able to use it across kind of the scope of marketing areas. But I think it's more about the proper use within each of those areas. So let's take, search engine optimization as an example. There's a lot you can be doing to make that work more efficient and effective utilizing AI, but you also don't just want to plug in kind of a few terms into into an AI driven tool and assume that that's going to give you what you need. I think you can kind of go through each of the elements of a marketing function that way and look at what is the right way to use it. And that there's someone with a critical eye on the other end, or that the human is looking at all of the output, and like I said, really having that critical eye on everything that is going in and coming out, and knows how to use the tools, but also really understands that kind of marketing discipline inside and out. So for us, it's something that senior people need to be the ones orchestrating and overseeing in order to get what we need.
Hmm. And you mentioned change management being really important. Could you expand a little bit on how you go about managing change management?
Sure, sure. It's a topic that's very near and dear to me, and it's actually one of the focuses for my own podcast. Um, I think the changes that we're seeing right now with an AI and what that's bringing to the world, not only do companies need to kind of revisit and evolve, how they're doing things, but there's also like the change management on the personal level. So each of us needs to kind of change and adapt how we work. I'll give you, one example very early on. Um, in kind of our AI journey is we had an AI first week across the team where I challenged everybody to look at, and we use ChatGPT as an example, but you can look at any number of tools, is go to ChatGPT first before you start something new. Some things will work, some things won't work. At that time it was a very new tool. So, a number of things were not possible that are possible today. But it's really getting into that mindset of how do I think and work differently. And I think for myself and speaking for the rest of my team, like we've definitely crossed that chasm. And I think that's had a ripple effect, not only in how we work, but even kind of on the personal level. So I think that change management needs to be internalized. It needs to be set with a vision from leadership. It needs to be genuinely bought into by the whole organization. So it really kind of filters through all those different levels.
Um, and you mentioned focusing on a few specific industry verticals. Have you always taken that kind of approach with your firm, or is that a more recent evolution?
It's been fairly close to the beginning. I would say we've always had that B2B tech focus. That's the industry I grew up in and the one where I'm most kind of passionate about, especially the impact that technology can have on the world, which we continue to see more and more of. But I would say, maybe a year or two into the business, did some initial analysis on where were our kind of best and most successful client engagements. And cybersecurity was one that rose to the top. It was an area I had experience in previously. We had some great client relationships. And so much like we tell our clients, it's okay to have a solution that is relatively horizontal, in our case, B2B tech. But from a sales and marketing proactive support, really being clear on where you want to proactively go after. And so that was an initial focus for us. We had some good expertise on the team, and then saw good success, and then that's continued to grow and snowball into now being a segment that we have really worked with over 60 clients. We know the industry inside and out. We know the ecosystem. So I think the more kind of ingrained in that approach, the more we start to see and feel the benefits, not only for our own business, but for our clients, more importantly. And we had a similar approach with some other verticals. So the idea was never to become an agency that's only focused on kind of one segment within tech, but rather to kind of figure out where to strategically place our bets for kind of the benefit of our own business and our impact for our clients.
Was there a time where you were kind of scared that you were turning away business that you could have signed up because you had a vertical focus, or not?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say yes. And I am a risk adverse person. So anytime I think about turning away, good business, it can feel scary. I think, one is really just staying true to kind of our plans. I have a pretty good rigor around kind of our annual like planning process and the marketing plans, the sales plans that go along with that, and kind of trusting the process, trusting the system. We also, this is similar to the kind of work we do for our clients when we do kind of marketing and go to market planning support. So I know that it works, and just have had to continue to remind myself that in our own business. But I think more so is that we've seen the benefits of it. So that has, outright outweighed the risk of kind of someone maybe getting turned away. That said, I think we still get lots of good referrals and opportunities from clients in other segments within B2B. We've been working, for example, with a number of clients in industrial and logistics segments over the past, I'd say, like year and a half or so, with some very successful, programs and strategies that we've put in place. So I think it's always about, where can we confidently know we're going to be successful, that we won't kind of move outside of our, core competencies, but also, like I said, where we can proactively focus our own sales and marketing efforts versus just kind of which clients can we successfully support.
You mentioned a number of factors that go into driving success at your firm, but maybe we can take a step back and say, for you and your firm, how do you define success? What does success look like to you? How do you measure it?
Sure. So I would say there's a number of ways that I could answer that. And it has evolved for me, I would say, over the years. It's never been about purely chasing growth. I'm always cautious about kind of fastest growing companies and on all of that. We've been on the Inc. 5000, but I think the more time I've spent, running and growing a business now for the last 13 years, there's other things that are more important to me, right? So making sure, we're having positive impact on our clients and their business and have kind of genuine, kind of authentic and open relationships, making sure I'm creating a great work environment. And I feel like it's a luxury and a responsibility that I get to surround myself with, smart, kind, talented people. And maintaining my own well-being and good dynamic in my family. I've got 2 young kids, and then also staying innovative and competitive in the market, which is kind of a moving target and something that we always need to stay on top of. So I think it's all of those components really coming together that helps me define success.
Yeah, I'll say when I was younger, it was easier to measure success because it was, revenue and profit numbers. And then I get older and I got a family and parents and all kind life happens and it
Life happens.
you know what I think of as success has definitely evolved as well, and goes a lot more goes much further beyond just revenue and profit numbers, trying to balance everything. Because our time here is fleeting at the end of the day, and start to think about what are we trying to accomplish, not just how
Yes,
much money are we
yes.
trying to make.
I'm curious for you, like, was there a particular moment that you remember kind of your definition of success changing, or was it more of an evolution?
It was really when my kids were born and they got to be, a couple of years old, 2, 3, 4 years old. Because I was still doing, I was running smart books. I was still actively investing, trying to beat the market, so to speak. And I just got to a point where my kids got to a certain age, um, and I wanted to spend time with them. And so the investing part of it went away. I just put all my investment assets in index funds and stopped trying to actively manage and carved out that part of my life and stopped doing it. So it's really, and then, we've both been members of Entrepreneurs Organization, the EO Boston chapter. And again, my kids got a little older and, I just found myself, coaching their sports teams 2, 3, 4 days a week. And I started to have more and more conflicts with the Thursday evening events and making my monthly forum meeting and things like that. And so I ended up dropping EO because there was just too much conflict with family commitments and activities that I wanted to do. So, definitely having the kids was the big thing for me. And now they're going into high school next year. I got twin boys, and I guess I've got 4 more years of them living here and at home and everything. So I'm trying to make the most of it.
Yep, yep. It definitely goes by fast, and I think that prioritization is such an important piece. It's it was the theme in a couple of things that you mentioned, and I think that is also a moving target. What you might prioritize one year is different than in a few years down the road. But I like what you said. Time is fleeting, and we have to just stop and prioritize the things that are important to us.
So when you think about some of the obstacles or hurdles get in the way of having the success that you envision. Is there anything that you want to share that you could use some either some help or some experience shares from the audience, or just anything in particular that's really been challenging for you and your firm lately?
Um, yeah, I would say, the biggest thing is, clients come first and clients are the lifeblood of our business. And so making sure that we always are kind of prioritizing with that in mind, but also, in a year where we do have a big kind of AI and automation initiative, and there's a lot of learning for myself and others on the team, kind of pushing ourselves into some of the newer skill sets, that we're finding that right balance. And I think that's, every day or every week might look a bit different of what that relative priority needs to be. But I think making sure that we're continuing to move our internal initiatives forward, that we're continuing to do our own sales and marketing efforts, kind of the way we want, but also recognizing that it's been a busy client load, and that we are always giving them kind of the time and attention they need. And really, there's kind of a mind share component of our account leaders always thinking on behalf of a client, but then also for our own business.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about, you as a marketing firm, how do you approach your own marketing, right?
Yep.
What are some of the things that you do?
Yeah, and I would say it's an area where we've gotten much better at, maybe over the last 5 or so years. There's a little bit of that like cobbler's children syndrome that we were experiencing early on, and it was something that I wanted to fix because I really wanted us to be the showcase for what good marketing looks like, and good like sales and marketing alignment and integration, and all of that. Recognizing that some of our clients are also professional services firms. Their clients are kind of high growth tech startups, so not everything is kind of applicable one to one. But really practicing what we preach, and not only for the optics, but more importantly for the outcome and the impact. And so I think it was around 5 years ago that I uh, brought on someone on my team that could be, half time focused on marketing, on our internal marketing efforts. So they were leading the charge, but then also pulling in the different experts from our team, so that we were truly treating ourselves like a client. And then over time, kind of adding the same rigor to how we kind of plan, how we manage, as we do for our clients. So I think that's definitely had a big impact. There's of course a time and a cost associated with that, but I think it's something that has allowed us to be very kind of proud about how we show up to the outside world.
Great. Yeah, the cobbler's son, yeah, that resonates with me. We're in the accounting and finance business, but sometimes we neglect our own internal financial reporting and metrics and everything. And I've got to remind myself we need to practice what we preach.
Yeah, yeah, could definitely feel easier said than done, but it feels good, and is kind of good outcomes when we do hold ourselves to it.
I got to ask you at least one accounting and finance question while we're chatting today. How do you go about managing the accounting and finance for your business?
I would say, first, this is not my greatest strength, or kind of what I bring to the table as an entrepreneur and kind of business owner. So it's something that pretty early on I brought in outside support, and really I'm a big believer in leaning on expertise, and especially for things that are not a personal core competency. So early on, I had a fractional CFO come in, and we're still working with him, but at the beginning, he was kind of the sole resource that was supporting us on that front. And then eventually, as I was building out my leadership team, I brought in a head of operations. That's a bit of a yin and yang for me, for where my own strengths are and where her strengths are. And she is very experienced in not only operations, but finance. And so that really helped us up our game and bring a new level of kind of reporting and tracking and all of that. And a few years ago, we implemented EOS, Entrepreneur's Operating System, and that again brought new kind of rigor to how we manage the business overall, but including kind of the financials. but also some of those kind of leading and lagging indicators in the business, and make sure we're looking at kind of all of our data and kind of financial and business health regularly.
It's great that you model the business where you can bring in or you have brought in folks to manage that for you. I'm curious how you've navigated, the delegation but not the abdication, right? What do you still like to look at to have confidence that the business is doing what it needs to be financially?
Yeah. So again, I would say it goes back to having the right kind of dashboards and reporting, and knowing kind of what frequency we need to look at those different things. So as a leadership team, there's certain metrics we look at on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis with my head of operations and our fractional CFO. We have a higher level review, and as we're closing kind of each month's finances, looking at the specific numbers, but also some of those key kind of ratios and the trend lines associated with them, both kind of month to month, but also how does this compare in a year over year compared to last year? And things look different. Sometimes that's okay. And even numbers going quote unquote in the wrong direction can be a good thing, right? It might mean we're making certain investments in the business, or we've added new headcount and we haven't kind of fully kind of experienced the benefit of bringing in that additional person. So I think it's the having the numbers and the visibility, but also what does it mean, and being able to drill in where it's important.
What are the top few metrics that you like to look at?
So I look at wages as a percentage of revenue, and I would say that's become an increasingly important one. Looking at team utilization, and that's important for forecasting and resource allocation, and making sure we're always ahead of kind of client and kind of new client demand, so that we're not bringing in kind of a new person to work with a new client, but have time to kind of bring new people in and train them, and all of that. At the same time, not bringing people in too early, because then that has its own financial implications on the business. um, and just kind of revenue. So we have, like I said earlier, a pretty rigorous planning process, and what we backing into what our kind of sales and marketing activities need to look like to support kind of the financial health of our business and the investments we want to make. And so making sure that we're looking at that regularly, and then it's kind of working the way that we needed to.
Right. So you mentioned utilization, which is certainly one of the short list of things that can move the needle in a service business. Does that mean your people fill out timesheets, or how do you navigate that? 'Cause it's kind of a controversial thing, because the supposed experts kind of say timesheets are old school. You shouldn't ask your people to fill out timesheets anymore. But on the other hand, payroll is your biggest cost in the service business. And so you need to know where people's time is going and how profitable different projects or client engagements are. So, how have you navigated the whole timesheet utilization tracking situation?
Yeah, I would say so. We do, everyone on the team does track their time. And that is not only like for, billing purposes, that is really to help us better, have the visibility and better manage the business. So that's been kind of in the ethos since the beginning. I know there's the kind of the concept of timesheets, like the clock in, clock out, and that is not at all, or micromanaging or all of that. That is not at all what it's about for us. It's really, having the visibility into, you know, how much time do we have from people? What kind of time do we need? What different skill sets do we have available? How long are things taking? Which I would say now, as we look at kind of the AI efficiencies, and I think there's increased expectations to do things more efficiently, but at least as well, if not better. And so really having that view, which we can then kind of with our systems like slice by person, by role, by functional area of kind of the marketing capability, by client. So I think without that time tracking, we really lose all of that visibility. And because in a services business, people essentially are our product. Without those metrics, we really are flying a little bit blind.
Yeah, and what I've seen is firms that try to make it easy for people to log their time have more success, right? They use timers. They use applications that have, a button you can click when you start working on a project, and then you click it when you're done, and it just creates the timesheet for you. I think the firms that have people that literally sit down and fill out a spreadsheet, um, have a much tougher go of it because it's just not that easy for the employees to fill out their timesheets.
Yeah.
So we try to, internally we have to do the same thing. We need to know where people's time is going. And, we've got an application with timers that we try to make it as easy as possible to automate the timesheet process. But at the end of the day, it's really valuable information to manage the business.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think as you mentioned, like the key is getting it into the workflow of the team, uh, the team's process. And so, the tool that we use for project management and a lot of other business management has it integrated, and it does have the time tracking behind the scenes if someone wants to turn it on and off, or as they're updating a project plan or things like that. So there's different ways to get that information in there. I'm not going to pretend it's always perfect and everyone's time is always 100% updated. But I think the team does genuinely understand the benefits of it. It helps them as well, right? The people that are managing accounts need to know how things are working, and just the impact on our business.
So what excites you about the future in your own firm or the industry?
Yeah, I would say the coming back to the topic of AI, I think it can be exciting and scary at the same time, and I guess that part is uh, not just in the business, but in life right now. But I think the ability to do more and do things differently, I think, is very exciting. So we're starting to innovate in ways that we uh, just weren't possible before, doing things in kind of a more manual approach. And because a lot of our clients are kind of tend to be the kind of smaller or mid-sized companies, they might be feel more budget constrained. I think the ability of what kind of AI and automation can do when it's done right is really to help them level the playing field between their own kind of marketing and digital presence compared to maybe much larger competitors that they might be facing. And so I think that really excites me, and we're seeing some of that benefit already, but we're also just still barely scratching the surface.
Really cool. Well, let's go back in time a little bit. If we go back some number of decades and you think about when you were growing up, did you ever think you'd be owning and running your own business? What were the milestones that got you kind of where you are today?
Yeah, I would say, I always had entrepreneurship in my DNA. I would say maybe it took me a while into my kind of adult career to realize that. So I always had some early signs. So, as a kid, I started a family fix-it shop where I encouraged relatives to kind of bring broken items, and of course tried to earn a dollar for that. My father was a dentist and would get these dental catalogs that with the different giveaways like pens and bouncy balls and things like that that could get branded. And I think I was about 8 or 9 years old. I convinced my mom to place an order, and then I went kind of door to door with a friend of mine to kind of sell those items to our neighbors and her neighbors at a markup. And um, just I don't know where the idea came from, but it was kind of in my DNA. And then college started a kind of pseudo business managing local bands and doing their photography and some of their design work. But it wasn't really until starting Magnitude in my kind of adult career that I had, took the plunge to start my own business. And it really came from my years of experience in B2B tech sector marketing. And having been kind of on the other side of the table, I was mostly in in-house marketing roles, and just saw the opportunity of how we can look differently at servicing clients, especially in kind of the segments that we serve. So I mentioned earlier, I'm risk adverse. It took a little bit of a personal push to get myself there, but after that, I didn't look back, and now I don't know that I could ever go back to kind of traditional employment.
I bet that kind of door to door sales experience was invaluable. Some of the best salespeople I know, got kind of their start having to do that. They might have been selling, painting jobs during the summer when they're on break from college or knives or whatever, they had to go talk to somebody in person and try to sell them something at a young age. And there's nothing quite like having to do that, I guess, to develop those skills.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And especially I was a very shy kid. People that meet me now don't always believe me when I say that, but like painfully shy. So again, I there was something in me that pushed me to want to do things like that, despite kind of how big of a hurdle it was for me.
Right? If you could go back to when you started Magnitude and give yourself some advice based on what you've learned over the years, what would you tell yourself?
Hmm. I think, hindsight's always 2020, but I think one area is that I don't need to reinvent the wheel unnecessarily. And I say unnecessarily because I do take pride in doing things differently. And I think part of why we've been successful in kind of our marketing efforts for clients is looking at things differently than kind of some other firms in the space. But there were also plenty of times when I reinvented the wheel on without knowing, how other companies do kind of, financial planning or, think about their own like staffing and hiring programs. So it was really through entrepreneurs organization and some other groups that I'd been part of previously that I realized the benefit of learning from other business owners, other entrepreneurs. What are they doing, and then what makes sense for us, and where are we kind of deliberately doing things differently. So that was a big one, I would say, like in our early days. I would say another area is pushing myself outside of my comfort zone, and not only by force, but because it's energizing. And I think I've proven that to myself repeatedly. I often, as I'm mentoring different first time founders, talk about, the things that used to be hard become easy. And for me, that's been, speaking engagements, having difficult conversations, kind of learning new skills, like all of those things. I think you build that muscle and find that the things that were hard are no longer, and that they're actually enjoyable. And then the last one I'll mention is just being myself and showing up more authentically in my kind of professional interactions. And I think, starting the business 13 years ago, I was younger. A lot of the clients I was working with were kind of further in their careers than I was in my own. And I think having that like vulnerability and confidence is something that came with time, and have really learned to trust my gut more, and putting kind of myself, like my whole self, out there in appropriate ways, of course. But that's really helped foster the kind of relationships with peers, with clients, with the team that are, more successful and more enjoyable.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, earlier in my career, I thought vulnerability was a weakness to avoid, always be strong, right? And then, now it's like, well, people actually they want to see you for who you are. Everybody's got troubles, they're challenged, nobody's perfect. And so I feel like, that authenticity and, you know, being vulnerable when you have to be vulnerable is definitely something you learn over the years is important.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. And I think it's so easy to say that and for it to feel like kind of lip service or a buzzword, but to like truly internalize that is sort of where the impact happens.
So what do you like to do outside of work?
Lots of things. So more than I have time for, I would say. Definitely, if you ask my husband, he would agree with that. So I love being active outdoors, depending on the season: running, biking, hiking, snowboarding. Also, right now, very near and dear to me this time of year is gardening. And so that was a pandemic hobby for me that has continued far beyond that, and it's just very rewarding for so many different reasons.
Yeah, gardenings is big for me these days too. It might be in my blood a little bit because my mother grew up on a farm in Indiana. So it might be in my genes a little bit, but a couple of years ago, I tend to get overly engaged in things, and so I kind of overbuilt a home garden and planted all this stuff that I could barely keep up with. But it's definitely fun to just go out there and watch watch the plants grow sometimes and relax.
It is. It is. Do you have any favorite things to grow?
Well, I grow a lot of different things. I'm really focused on trying to get some perennials going, like Jerusalem artichokes or hopness, which is similar to a Jerusalem. artichoke, stuff that I can invest a little bit of time upfront getting established, and then they just grow year after year. So I've got a number of fruit trees and a strawberry plant and, you know, horseradish, and of course I do the standard, tomatoes and cucumbers and things like that. But I'm trying to get some perennials established as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's one of those things, much like entrepreneurship, where there's kind of a bottomless pit of how much you can learn and in which direction you take those kind of learnings and trying new things. And so that's something that I think I've really enjoyed in that. And then also just time away from the desk, right? So you're probably in a similar environment where we spend a lot of time in front of our computer and sitting. So it's nice to have that kind of forcing function to have to tend to a garden and be outside and get your hands dirty and all that.
Yeah, gives you a good excuse to get out and get some fresh air and some sunshine.
Yes, for sure.
So Natalie, if folks want to connect with you, where should they reach out to you?
Yeah, I'd say to reach out to me directly. LinkedIn is probably best. I'm pretty active on there. So linkedin.com/Natalie Nathanson. And then my website is magnitudeconsulting.com. That's spelled with an E, Magnetude. And then my podcast, which is all about how leaders drive change and innovation in their organizations, is shiftandthrivepodcast.com.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time and everything you've shared today, Natalie. So like understanding how you approach thinking about AI in your firm, how you think about focusing on those business verticals, and kind of how you've navigated the financial management of your practice as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a great conversation. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So for those listening, if you've learned something today or you laughed, or you cried or something, please share information about this podcast. Tell people about it. Let's get some good information into other people's hands. So thank you again, Natalie.
Thank you.
This has been another exciting episode of the Marketing Agency Power Hour. We'll see you all next time. Another episode in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and more, please visit marketingagencypowerhour.com. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, providing marketing agencies with bookkeeping, accounting, and finance support. With SmartBooks, you gain the clarity and confidence to make your agency a success. Until next time.